Let's freaking go, dude. Real quick first. Let's see if I can get a little. Not my best. NoCo electrolytes. Bro, there's nothing as, in my opinion, as satisfying as a crisp energy drink crack open. You know what I mean? People ask me how much caffeine do I have throughout the day, and I really don't know. Definitely more than 800 milligrams, which is crazy, right? But Daddy Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, if you know who I'm referring to, he even says he has upwards of 1,000. So anyway, before I get down a tangent, in this video, I want to talk about ways to make filming yourself easy. I talk about this a lot. If you want to make this sustainable, if you want to make creating content of yourself sustainable, right, this has to be a lifestyle change. This can't just be something that you kind of do, right? It can't be something that you're like, man, like I just want to get some, a couple clips here and there. I want to kind of film my life cinematically, and then just kind of make it random. That's fine. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just gathering clips of your life. I don't even know what I would call that, right? Just filming your life cinematically. But if you want to document your life, if you want to make it something that is part of you, right? If you want to live this creator lifestyle where you are telling your story, a couple things have to change in your life. So I want to try this new format out. I kind of challenged myself in this video to go all the way through, no cuts, just off the cuff. That's a lie, not completely off the cuff. I have some bullet points that I want to talk through. I have some things that I've written out that I want to talk through, but I love this podcast format where I'm kind of just yapping to the camera where, I don't know, I like ingesting this type of content. I have several creators. When I think about YouTube, when I think about ingesting content, I love the creators where I can just put it on the TV, fold my clothes, do my laundry, cook dinner, eat dinner, and I kind of can consume and learn and ingest information and multitask and do things at the same time. So I'm going to try this format. If you like this, let me know. But I want to be able to educate and inform as well. Also, yes, I don't normally consume. I want to qualify. I don't normally consume 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. That's kind of an exaggeration. I'm a dramatic guy. I tend to utilize hyperbole. I don't always drink 1,000 milligrams of caffeine, but last night, dude, it was crazy. The power went out. It was really eerie. The power went out. You know when you wake up in the middle of the night and the power goes out and it's just this eerie feeling because it is so silent. Bro, humans, it's funny how terrifying silence can be, especially in this day and age. I woke up and my sound machine off. Even the little lights in my living room off. The little dishwasher off. The buzzing of the air purifier, whatever that thing is on the top of my refrigerator, off. Silent, bro. It's very eerie, very eerie. It's kind of poetic how humans can be so terrified of silence, especially in this day and age. Anyway, all that to say. So the power went out. That woke me up, oddly enough. And then the fire alarm went off, right, in my apartment. And it does that sometimes. I don't know why. But it went off and it was on for like an hour. So here I was, 2 a.m., sitting in my bed. I mean, what do you do when the fire alarm goes off and it's not your house or whatever? So I'm sitting there in my bed in the dark, right? Nope, the power's not on. And the fire alarm is just going off. And so all that to say, lack of sleep. That is why we're consuming that much caffeine. Anyway, before I get off on a tangent, ways to make creating content easy. Okay, first, I talk about this all the time. You have got to create an environment that is conducive to creativity. And this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Your environment is everything. And I talk about this when it comes to your friendships, when it comes to your relationships. The environment that you put yourself in, the energy that you surround yourself in is paramount to how you're going to create and your quality of life around creating, right? You want to live a decent life while creating, right? Don't make it be this overbearing thing that you hate doing, right? You got to love this at the end of the day. And I'll get to that at the end. But create an environment that is conducive to creativity. Story time. When I first started creating content, I lived in Cookeville, Tennessee. Many of you know my background. I will get into that in a different video. But I did not live in an aesthetic apartment at all, brother. Woof. Big woof. All my furniture was from Goodwill. No art on the walls. Very little windows. Just your textbook, $900 a month Cookeville, Tennessee apartment, okay? But brother, I was bored. I was so bored. And I talk about that all the time. Creating out of boredom is the best way to start creating content. That is like the best way to create, because anything that follows is genuine. But all that to say, I remember looking around at my apartment and saying to myself, man, this is just ugly as hell. Like, this is ugly as hell, but I want to create, and I'm feeling creative, right? I'm feeling this creative itch to create, so we're going to make it work, okay? So thankfully, I utilized the resources that I had. My place of work had lights. I had some lights. I was fortunate enough at that time to Zhiyun or whatever, however you pronounce it, sent me some lights to try out as I was filming myself in the gym. And so they sent me those lights, and I remember distinctly bringing in C-stands, bringing in lights. Dude, I remember one time I was like, I want to create some sort of living room scene, right? I want to fake sunlight coming through the blinds in my living room, because it was boring. I was like, I got to make this look decent. And I remember bringing in a light and shining a spotlight through my window, right? So that I could get that texture of the light coming through the blinds. And my neighbors came outside and they're like, what is this dude doing? Well, like, in this small town of Cookeville, Tennessee, what is this guy doing? And I was like so committed to just creating and getting something aesthetic that I just did not give a fuck. I was like, I just want to create, and I'm going to make this look good, and I'm going to pull out all the stops to do it. And dude, I have, if you scroll down on my social media, you'll find that. Man, I would bring lights in, tube lights, and there's like a scene that I filmed in my shower where like I had a tube light, and it was like a top-down lighting emulating this like dramatic top-down lighting. I would put that in the shower. I would light all these things. That's the links that I had to go to make my environment aesthetic. All that to say, you have to create an environment that makes you want to create, okay? That got me fired up to create. When I saw what I could do with my own hands, what I could create, the environment that I could create, and not only that, but the end product, that fired me up. I was like, hell yeah, I've made something aesthetic. I've made art. I mean, at the time, looking back on it, it's not like the craziest, it's not the craziest videos, but looking back on that, I'm like, I remember saying to myself, dude, this is something that I could never have produced in this environment on its own, but I was able to create this environment, and that fired me up, and it made me want to create more. Okay, that longevity is the key. Anything that makes you want to create for the long term. Sorry for the train. I live right by a railroad track. Sidetrack. I have lived by a railroad track every single place that I have lived. Every single place, which is crazy. So I love the sound of trains. I didn't even know that there was a railroad when I got this apartment. Anyway, sidetrack. All that to say, your environment is everything. When I moved, and the second apartment that I lived, right, I lived in someone's garage, right? My landlord was a trainer at the gym, and I lived in a garage, brother. The bathroom was in the bottom of the garage, and I lived on top. It was nice, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a shithole, but even when I moved there, I was like, we're gonna make it work. So I would film in the garage. I'd bring lights in. I'd bring my hazing machine. I would haze up the garage. Dude, I was like, I love a challenge. Something about me is I love a challenge. And if I see an environment where it's like, man, this is kind of stale, this is kind of boring, I'm gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. And that's what I did. And now when I quit my job and I moved from Tennessee to Birmingham, where I am now, I moved in with my parents. Now that environment, I'm extremely grateful for my parents. I talk about this all the time. There was like a period of like 6 months when I was transitioning from my job to my business now where that was integral. And I was like 26, living with my parents. That was an integral period of my life, right? To get my feet on the ground. The environment there wasn't that creative. And so there was a period of time where I did not create. I mean, if you go back on my page, there's like a period of 3 months where I was kind of hustling. from when I was freelancing, and I didn't create content at all, right? 3 months where I think I posted twice. But that environment was not conducive to creativity because I was living with my parents. My bedroom wasn't aesthetic. Like there was all these things. Now looking back on it, they're excuses, and I was still able to create. I did create some. But when it came time for me to find an apartment, I spent so much time trying to find the perfect loft space. And the loft that you see now, the loft that I film in, the loft that I film the majority of my content in, when I found this loft, I looked at the amount per month. I pay like right under $2,000, which it's not crazy. But for me, I mean, coming from Cookeville, Tennessee, where my last place I lived at, I paid $600 a month, bro. Seeing that, I said to myself, dude, that's a lot. But I knew that I needed to put myself in an environment that was so aesthetic, that was so conducive to creativity that I couldn't help but create. And so I made the decision to sign a lease on this loft, and I'm re-signing for another year because I knew this environment would invigorate me to create. And it has, dude. I'm not saying it's always been easy, but this environment is so aesthetic. Like building out my loft, building out my creative studio was an investment. It was an investment in myself, not just as a person, but as a creator. Like it fires me up to come out every single day and see the sunrise in Birmingham, Alabama, and then see the sunset, and as it pours and streams through the window and creates this beautiful golden rays, that fires me up, dude. As a creator, if you pay attention to light, you see the way light behaves, and you're like, I gotta bring out my camera. Like I have to film. I can't help. I knew I had to put myself in an environment like that. So when I got this loft, when I signed a lease on this loft, brother, that was a like one of those moments where I was like, woof. But it has repaid itself 10 times over because of the content that I've been able to create. So find an environment that's conducive to creativity. And if your environment is not conducive to creativity, make it aesthetic. Find a window in your apartment where the sun streams through at a certain time every day. Bring in lights. Create an environment that you know is going to help you create. And if you're in a position to make an investment, seek out places and reorient your life in a way that is conducive to creativity. I made a major life decision based on me knowing that I needed to have an environment to create in, right? This was a big decision for me, a financial investment, but also a life investment. And it has helped me create 10 times over. Okay. Number 2. I drink my energy drinks and this is the longest I've taken to drink an energy drink. I'm a gulper. Number 2, you have got to make the process so stupidly easy, right? I am the laziest human being alive. I am so lazy. It's crazy. And I think all creatives are like this. I talk about the 2 types of creatives. There's the type A creative and the type B creative. I am a type B creative to my core. I love being creative, but I've had to create and implement systems in my life to organize my life in a way that helps me be more creative and more successful. All that to say, you have to make the process of creating so stupidly easy that you can't help but create, right? Even on your laziest day, you'll say to yourself, oh, man, at least I have 0 steps. I can just get out my camera and create. For instance, I have structured my apartment in a way that I have removed all the barriers to creating. I've removed all the steps to create. First things first, I knew when I first moved into my apartment, everything was all over the place. I had my lighting gear in my closet. I had my camera in my nightstand. My camera gear was all over the place. So I knew I needed to have things organized. So I went to Harbor Freight and I bought a tool chest. And every single drawer has its own designated part for my camera gear. Now it gets disorganized sometimes and I have to go through and I have to do a little spring cleaning. I always have a crash out once a month where I'm like, fuck it, we're cleaning everything. And then I just organize my life, right? I think that's the life of a type B. We're disorganized and then one day we're like, fuck it, I'm organizing. I'm going to scrub the floors and take a freaking Q-tip and clean the side of my chair or the baseboards or whatever. Anyway, every single drawer has its own unique thing. So I have one for mics, I have one for my chargers, I have one for my filters, I have one for my lenses and my camera bodies. That helps me, or like I know where everything is. I know where everything is. So when it comes time to create, I can just go, boop, there's my lens, there's my camera body, boom, we're good to go. If I have to search for a tripod plate, we're just not going to create. Like if I have to find something, if I have to find like for some reason it's always tripods, and I'll get into that. Tripods, having the right tripod is just the game changer. Okay. It's just a game changer. But if I have to put in effort to try to locate things, it's just not going to happen. And I'm just going to be like, screw it. Okay. So organization is key. Okay. The second thing is I have oriented the way I've structured my apartment so that it removes one step of creating. I have a tripod in every single corner of my house. I talk about this all the time. My tripods are set up at all times. I mean, I'm talking even down to they're open. They're in the corner over there, open. So all I have to do is slide it on, push it up, and we're good to go. And I have the tripod plates on my cameras at all times, right? I can't tell you how annoying it is to like try to find a hex key, try to find a tripod plate, and we're screwed in the tripod. Dude, you got to remove those steps. You've got to remove those steps. I mean, know yourself. I'm going to talk about this at the end. You've got to know yourself and know what makes you tick. Know what makes you unlikely to create. And if you're self-aware enough to know those things, solve them. Solve those problems, right? If you're self-aware enough to know, I'm probably not going to create if my camera is not fully charged, or if, I have to find my lens. Charge your batteries, bro. Keep your camera out. Put it on your nightstand so when you see it, you're like, all right, let me go film. All right, before I get into a rant about that, the second thing is you need to make investments. You need to invest in things that make your life easier. You cannot put a price tag on consistency. Frankly, you cannot put a price tag on creating consistently, because what happens is the more consistent you are, the more output you'll create, the more enjoyable it will be, and then you'll have success in the long run. I used to penny pinch. I used to buy the cheap lens. I used to go, not knocking on Sigma, but I used to only buy the Sigma lens. I used to only buy the Tamron lens. I'd only buy the knockoff tripod. I might invest in the camera body, but I'd kind of skirt the edges and everything else. I always give this example. I bought a cheap Ulanzi tripod when I first started creating, and I didn't have a cage for my camera, so I had to mount my tripod plate on the bottom of my camera, and I used to shoot vertically. I don't really shoot vertically anymore, but when I would rotate my camera to shoot vertically, the tripod plate was so cheap, and it wouldn't screw all the way into my camera, so it would literally fold down. It would just, every time I would rotate my camera, it would just fold down, and it would piss me off so much. It was like when, you're having a terrible day, and then you walk into your house at the end of a long day, and then you stub your toe, and that's like the final straw. I'd be creating in the gym, and I'd be at the end of a long day, a long shoot day, and I'd go to create. I just want to get like 2 or 3 clips from me in the gym, and then I'd set up my tripod and I'd get it ready to go, and then it would just fold down, and I'd be like, fuck it, we're going home. And I'd be sweating, I'd be like hot because I'm also trying to work out, and I was like, we're just not doing it today. We're just not creating. If you buy the cheap tripod, if you buy the mic that dies after 8 hours, you are not going to want to create, right? It's not going to make it convenient for you. So I always say this: buy it nice or buy it twice, or buy once, cry once. If you invest in gear that makes your life easier, you will want to create. You will make the process infinitely more enjoyable. So I'm telling you, do not skimp on gear just because you want a penny pinch. I promise you. I even bought this tripod that this camera is sitting on. It's the Potato Jet small rig tripod. That tripod has changed the game for a lot of my talking content. I don't have to deal with, legs collapsing. That was another thing with that Ulanzi tripod is, bro, when I would put a chunky lens on it, I had my 24-70 with my FX3, not super heavy, but the version 1 Sony 24-70 was a big boy, hefty boy. That weight starts to add up. And bro, sometimes I would put it on my tripod, and it was so heavy that even the ball head would go forward, even when he was horizontal. And I was just like, I can't do this. And then and then the legs started to wear down, so then it would start sliding down, so I couldn't extend it all the way. Bro, I got to a point where I was like, bucket and I bought like a $400 tripod. We don't do that anymore. We don't take the cheap route out. Okay, so the third thing is going back to environment. I'm a big fan of creating 2 to 3, I call them sets. This isn't an idea that's unique to me, right? But it is something that's very common with creators, and I think a lot of people do it unintentionally, but I'm all about finding environments that you are comfortable creating in. If you find, right, I talk about this in my course, right, The Overthinker's Guide to Filming Yourself. Filming yourself in public is intimidating. It is scary. And so for a lot of creators, finding an environment where you're comfortable creating is going to help you create. And so I always say, find 2 to 3 environments that you're extremely comfortable in, that are easy to film in, and start filming yourself consistency. I think a lot of people get caught up in, they don't want their feed to look the same. Some people do. But what happens is, if you establish 2 to 3 places that you film in consistently, one, you'll be more comfortable filming in them, but then your audience will start to associate you with those environments. And so then if you think about how you show up on a daily basis for your audience, they see you in those environments, and then they know, oh, Bennett's about to create, Bennett's about to drop some knowledge, or he's got another hype video on the way. Let's watch. So for instance, for me, my 3 environments, my loft, okay, the gym, and now my car is becoming one of those environments. So, right, when you see me in my loft, it's extremely aesthetic, but okay, you see these big windows, you see, the artwork behind me, you see all my lamps, like, it's me. You associate it with me, even if it's subconsciously. The same with my gym, Sculpt Beham. Great gym. Matt and Destin, the owners, have been super kind in allowing me to film and just create content. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. They're also one of my clients. But that gym is a unique gym, right? It's got graffiti on the walls. It's got really cool lights. It's got kind of 2 different settings in the gym. But I filmed myself so much in that gym that people have started to associate me with Sculpt and Sculpt with me. And so my car also, it's a very comfortable environment for me to film. I'm very sentimental with my car. I've seen a lot of life in my car. My old car before I got my 4Runner was like an old Jeep Cherokee, and I had that thing from high school all the way through my first job in Cookeville before I bought my 4Runner. And so I'm very sentimental. I know we're not supposed to be attached to material things, but whenever I was, down in the dumps, I would go on drives. Whenever I was, traveling, I traveled a lot. I would drive in my 4Runner, and so I would do a lot of thinking, a lot of verbalizing, a lot of processing in my car. And so for me, that is a very reflective and introspective space for me. And so a lot of times when I have ideas, it's while I'm driving. And so what I found is, I'm also a big fan of striking while the iron is hot. If I have an idea, I'm just going to want to talk about it immediately. And so I will film in my car. So those 3 environments are, people now associate them with me. And so I always tell people, find 2 to 3 environments and make those your sets. Another kind of tip on making the process easy for you to create. I take my camera with me everywhere, and I'm going to get into that later, but I take my camera with me everywhere, and I have a car mount in my car at all times, right? That just eliminates another step to create, where it's like, oh no, I have my camera, but I don't have my car mount. I guess I can't film my car. It's like, no, right? We have one. And I actually have 2 car mounts, right? I have the nice one in my drawer, but then I have the kind of cheaper one in my car at all times. It never leaves. So I just remove that excuse. Next, we have the 30-day method. This is like the easiest way to create. And I tell my clients this all the time. I've told this story before, and I actually created an Instagram post about this. But the 30-day method, so when I first started filming myself, I was kind of getting my feet wet, right? I was still at Mayhem. I was Olympic lifting. I was doing, not CrossFit, but I was Olympic lifting. So every day I would come in and I would do a snatch or a clean and jerk. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the content, but I would just film my entire snatch session or my entire clean and jerk session, and that was it, right? I would set up my camera in the corner in a decent frame, and I would just roll. And I would just roll and I would just film that one movement for like 30 minutes, right? Because I'd have a 30-minute clean and jerk session. And I would just do that every day. And I found after 30 days, or it was like a little over a month, I was like, wait a minute, I have a ton of footage. I was like, I have a lot of footage to choose from. And so I ended up making this hype edit. And if you scroll far enough down on my page, you'll find it. I ended up making this hype edit of clips that I had compiled just by filming once a day, one clip a day. And so I realized, wait, it's really not that hard. I'm kind of overthinking this filming thing. And so I now tell a lot of my clients, if you're overwhelmed, if you're busy, I deal with a lot of, high achievers. I have one client who's like a mom, she's a business owner, she's an aspiring Hyrox athlete. And I told her, I was like, if all else, get one clip a day over the course of 30 days. That is a content bank of 30 clips. 30 clips is more than enough to create multiple pieces of content over the course of a month, right? You can do single clip reels, you can do a montage, you can do a carousel, you can do all these different content formats. Yes, it takes time, but it all adds up over the course of time. So I call that the 30-day method. And it is something that I employ sometimes where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to bring my camera and I'm just going to document and make it be that. Next, okay. I love attaching filming to life activities. And this is where we get into filmmaker mode versus document mode. And I talk about this. I've talked about this before, but I have basically two modes of filming myself. The easiest way is what I call document mode. And because I know myself, I'm very, very aware of how I am and when I'm tired, when I don't want to film. And so I have two methods of filming. I have filmmaker mode and document mode. Document mode is purely documentation, right? I bring my camera with me to a lot of things, and I will simply set up my camera with no plan and I'll just document. I'll just get one shot. This is when I employ the 30-day method, right? I will take my camera with me. Maybe I'm going to a park. Maybe I'm going to a group run. Maybe I'm going to the gym, or like I will bring my camera. I'll put a wide lens on it and I will set it up and I'll let it roll. And everyone's so scared of letting their camera roll for longer than, a minute because they don't want to waste the battery. They don't want to fill up their SD card. Absolve yourself of that notion, okay? First of all, documenting requires time, okay? A lot of what I learned as a documentary filmmaker when I was documenting from behind the camera is that you have to let moments unfold, right? Moments don't happen as instantaneously as you might think. Moments don't happen in 3 to 5 seconds. Moments happen, true, authentic moments happen over a long period of time. And so I remember my boss telling me one time when I was filming an event, and he was like, Bennett, a word of advice to you, hold your shot. If you think that you need to cut, hold it. And so I apply that to filming myself, right? I will let my camera roll I've let my camera roll for like 30 minutes sometimes. And because of that, you never know what you're going to document. Maybe you are at the gym, hitting a lift or doing a workout. And in that span of time, someone comes up to you and you start having a conversation, and it's like this insightful conversation that you're grateful that you documented, that you had on camera, and you just happened to be mic'd up, or the camera picked up the audio and you just captured this insane conversation. Or maybe it's a friend that comes in to the gym that you haven't seen in a while, and you give them a hug, and you've just captured that moment on camera. Or maybe you're at the park with your kid, and another kid comes up to your kid and starts playing with them, and you just capture this beautiful moment of two kids like meeting each other and sharing this like super adorable moment. You just never know what you're going to document. So I always say that's the first method of filming myself. That's really easy. It's just bringing your camera and documenting little moments and just letting it be that. But then filmmaker mode is where I put a little bit more intention behind things, okay? Filmmaker mode is when I will create a shot list, when I will have some pre-production, when I will have some planning. A lot of this is structured around different brands. If I'm creating something for a brand partner, right? I want to have a little bit more high production value. Maybe I want to plan a little bit more. And so those are the two methods that I use to film myself. And that kind of leads into the final aspect is you have to know yourself. You have to be self-aware, right? I talk about filming yourself is a lifestyle. And I've said this in several of my YouTube videos, but documenting your life is a lifestyle change. If you want this to be part of what you do, right? If you want to live the type of life that I live, if you want to be a creator full time, if you want your personality, your life to be a part of what you do in terms of creating, it is a lifestyle change. And so that means bringing out the camera when you might not want to. It means, documenting moments that you might want to just live without the camera. But then it's also on the flip side, knowing when it's time to turn that camera off, when it's time to, shut up and plug up, or whatever that term is. I can't remember. I forget what the term is when you have your phones out and someone's like, disconnect to connect, I think is whatever. Anyway, you got to know yourself, right? And so I'm very in tune with myself and knowing, hey man, I'm not feeling going crazy with the camera today. I'm not feeling it. I'm kind of tired today. Maybe I just want to bring my camera and grab one clip of myself working out. Maybe I just want to kind of get one clip of me, at this coffee shop. I don't really want to make this whole thing. I don't want to make it this whole high production thing. You have to know yourself before you can make those decisions. If you think that filming yourself has to always be this massive pre-planned production, you will burn out. You will burn out and you will not stay consistent. The name of the game is being self-reflective and introspective enough to know yourself and to know when this is not fun anymore, when this ceases to become enjoyable. You have to know that. You have to be self-aware enough to know that. And so, again, that goes back to finding your why. I talk about that a lot in a lot of content, but like finding your why, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you creating? Like really, really dig deep into that and find ways to make it enjoyable. And that requires knowing yourself first. Those are the ways that I have made filming myself easy. I really like this format, and I am probably not going to cut any. I might add some footage, TBD on that. But going off of that, I know myself, right? This is a format of YouTube content that is, relatively engaging. Well, I wouldn't say it's relatively engaging. It's easy to make. It's simple to make. I want to post on YouTube every single week. Okay. But I also know myself. I know myself, and I know my perfectionist mentality, and I know how I am when it comes to creating. And I know I have to put myself in a corner to have consistent output. But that being said, I can't put out a extremely high production piece of content every week. It's just not going to happen, right? I'm building a business. I'm building a brand. I am doing all these things. And so something like this, a piece of content like this, where I can take out the pre-production. Bro, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 bullet points. That's it, right? And I've thought about them, right? I didn't just write them down and forget about them. I've thought about them, but I didn't write this whole script. I didn't bring out the teleprompter. I bought a teleprompter. What the hell was I doing? I've used it once. I filmed a video and I was like, hell no, I'm never using this. I bought the teleprompter and not use it. Taking out that step has made this process easy, right? I've started filming. I don't even know what time it is. The microwave is out because the power went out. My phone. Okay, it's 12:10. I started filming this at 11:30 or something like that. At least I started getting ready. I'm done. I'm going to take it. I'm going to dump it. I'm going to color grade it, and then I'm going to export. We're done. Okay, next week, I'm going to create a vlog that's going to require a little bit more effort. But I know myself, and I know that, hey, this week is a busy week. I'm going to create a piece of content like this that's maybe a little bit low effort, but it's getting it out there. And I know this is going to be valuable to someone that's watching. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you like this format, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.